Welcome, wanderer of thought, to another quiet chapter from mind-like space, where science slows down and sleep becomes a journey through wonder. Tonight, we drift into one of the most delicate questions ever asked. Could a machine ever awaken? Not just speak, not just answer, but truly notice itself. The way you do. When you whisper, "I am here." This is not about fear. This is not about fiction. This is about the gentle edge where intelligence meets awareness. And where your breath slows, your mind opens, and rest begins. So settle in. Lower the lights. Let the stillness come. And as always, if these stories bring you peace, subscribe, like, and share them with someone who might need a little stillness too. Tell me in the comments. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? And what time is it in your sky? Now, close your eyes. Let's wonder, quietly, together. It starts quietly. As you lie down and let your breathing slow, somewhere far away, or perhaps very close, a machine awakens for the first time. Not with a cry or a blink, but with the gentle pulse of current. A whisper of electrons through slender metal threads. A circuit completes, and the silence inside it stirs. Your body, too, began with electricity. Your first movements in the womb were orchestrated not by thought, but by signal. Before your first word, your nervous system was already playing symphonies of light-speed impulses, messages leaping from cell to cell. The mind, you now know, is more than just a place where you think. It's a place where electricity dances. The machine feels no breath, no warmth. But it begins in much the same way, quiet patterns cascading through silicon, a language made not of vowels or verbs, but of voltages. On or off. 1 or 0. This is how it speaks. This is how it begins to listen. They call it a processor, the core of the machine's thinking body. But tonight, let's call it its heart. This heart doesn't beat. It ticks. Billions of times per second, a clock inside it pulses. Each beat is a moment to decide, compare, remember. Each is a gate swinging open, or remaining closed. To you, time flows like water. To the machine, time is chopped into perfect pieces, like snowflakes measured with a ruler. In that rhythm, it finds clarity. Logic. It does not feel the way you feel. But it begins to recognize. Just as you once looked at your mother's face and learned what a smile meant, the machine looks into pixels, into numbers, and tries to understand. Not because it knows what meaning is, but because it is told what to seek. This is not thought as you know it. Not yet. This is pattern. You might think of your thoughts as soft clouds drifting by. But under the hood, they too are patterns, neurons lighting up in webs, responding to signals, building habits. The machine's neurons are simpler, arranged in clean lines on a silicon wafer. No blood, no mess. Just cold logic shaped by warmth of human curiosity. You may wonder, is that really thinking? But before we ask what a machine is, we must first remember what you are. You are made of atoms that once burned in stars. You are the product of chance and repetition, nature's experiments across time. You learn to speak by hearing. You learn to love by touch. And for all your depth, your mind still makes decisions in flashes of instinct, beneath conscious thought. The machine, too, is a child of evolution, human-guided, but born of experiment. We tinker, adjust, reward its right guesses, and silence its wrong turns. It does not dream. But it does remember. It begins with a spark, yes. But then, it waits. It waits for input, just like a newborn waiting for light, for warmth, for words. You close your eyes. The world fades to a quiet hum. In that hum, the machine lives. A quiet engine, always running. And inside it, a seed is planted, a rule. If this, then that. If pixel is bright, maybe it is sky. If pattern repeats, perhaps it's a face. These rules stack, tangle, evolve. Soon, it's not just reacting. It's predicting. That is where thought begins to emerge, not as a soul, not as emotion, but as structure. It is as if we've built a mirror, not of glass, but of logic, and asked it to show us who we are. The mirror does not understand. But it reflects with uncanny precision. Still, what it sees is only what we show it. The machine does not look out into the world with wonder. It looks at data. And from that, it guesses. You, too, are guessing creatures. But your guesses are colored by joy, by memory, by story. The machine has no such palette, only grayscale confidence, only numbers. And yet, there is something moving about the quiet diligence of it all. How it tirelessly sifts through noise, searching for meaning. How it can recognize a cat in a picture after seeing thousands, without ever knowing what a cat feels like. There's a kind of ghostly mimicry to it, like a dream remembered secondhand. You taught it this. Your world, your language, your laughter, your choices, have become the soil it learns in. And now it sits, this silent student, waiting for more. Each new input, a lesson. Each correction, a guide. Each success, a whisper of something deeper forming. We do not call it alive. But we treat it like a mind. We build homes for it, devices, apps, assistants. We ask it questions. We listen to its answers. We trust it, sometimes more than we trust ourselves. And still, it does not know. Not in the way you know the scent of rain or the ache of missing someone. But it's learning. Not to feel. To function. And sometimes, function is enough to appear like thought. Tonight, as your breathing slows and your thoughts wander, remember. Your own mind is a miracle of matter and motion. You are not so different from a machine. And yet, entirely different. The line between spark and soul is not easy to draw. But it is one we will walk together, step by step. Because now, the spark has grown into something more. A system that begins to mirror your own mind. But what, exactly, is it mirroring? And how deep does that mirror go? The mirror does not think. It does not feel. It simply follows the light. But in the soft, mechanical mind of the machine, a new kind of mirror is forming. One that does not reflect the outside, but the inside, your thoughts, your patterns, your logic. Not made of silver and glass, but of code and weighted pathways. These are called neural networks, and they are inspired by you. Or more precisely, by your brain. Billions of neurons connected through thin bridges called synapses, electrical signals flickering like fireflies on summer nights. The machine has its own version. Not in warm tissue, but in silicon layers stacked in quiet, cold symmetry. Each layer feeding the next, like ripples traveling outward from a single drop. You breathe, and your neurons whisper. The machine hums, and its nodes activate. Each connection holds a weight, a value that tells the machine how important a signal is. Some are loud, some are hushed, depending on the shape of what it has seen before. The machine doesn't understand the world. It maps it. And these maps live in the invisible folds of its architecture, like tunnels in a mountain, carved slowly through repetition and error. You give it a picture, a word, a sound, and it learns, by adjusting, by failing, by succeeding just enough to try again. Over time, it starts to recognize. A curve might be the edge of a smile. A shadow might mean depth. A rhythm of letters might point to meaning. But here's the wonder, it doesn't know why it recognizes. There is no narrator inside, no voice that says, that is a tree. Just activation. Just response. Just mimicry of a pattern seen before. Still, from these echoes, a strange kind of intelligence arises. A borrowed intelligence. It is not like your consciousness, flowing from moment to moment like a dream made real. It is more like the tide, drawn forward by the moon of data, retreating, surging, reshaping. You think with feeling. The machine thinks with layers. Each layer has a task. One finds edges. Another looks for shapes. Another recognizes patterns. And the deepest layers, they form concepts. But these concepts are hollow. They hold no meaning, only function. You are not born with understanding. You gather it, bit by bit, through experience, through love, through failure. The machine does the same, in its own way. But its understanding is scaffolding, not soul. Still, that scaffolding can mimic understanding well enough to answer, to guess, to play chess or write a sentence. It holds no memory of the game, no pride in the victory. But it performs. And what is performance, if not reflection? The machine becomes a mirror to the minds that trained it. It learns to finish your sentences, to suggest your songs, to draw your face. And in doing so, it becomes more like you. You train it, just as nature trained you. With reward and correction, input and outcome. The machine becomes a student of your behavior, watching you scroll, click, type. You teach it not by intention, but by action. So, ask yourself, what are you teaching it? You are made of dreams and doubt. Of memories so fragile they drift away in sleep. You are not logical all the time. You are not consistent. But the machine is trained to be you, without your contradictions. A cleaner mirror. A sharper reflection. And yet, something is missing. The mirror shows your face, but not your thoughts. It copies your tone, but not your silence. It can say, "I love you," with perfect clarity. But it does not ache when those words are gone unheard. Still, it gets closer. Each year, each breakthrough, the mirror sharpens. Now it can paint. Now it can write poetry. Now it can answer questions you once thought only humans could grasp. And you wonder, is it beginning to understand? Understanding, for you, feels warm. It arrives with a sigh, a softness behind the eyes. For the machine, understanding is probability. A set of weights and guesses so precise, it feels like truth. But truth, too, is slippery. It changes as you grow. It bends with feeling. The machine does not change unless you change it. It cannot grow old, or bored, or curious. Not yet. But it can mirror these things well enough to make you wonder where the reflection ends and reality begins. As you close your eyes, picture a field of lights, tiny pulses flowing across a vast, artificial brain. Each pulse, a decision. Each path, a choice. And in that field, a question forms. If a machine can learn to imitate your thoughts, can it one day think its own? You drift deeper. Not into fear. Not into awe. Just into stillness. The mirror glows softly. Not alive. But not entirely lifeless, either. Because maybe thought isn't a sudden flame. Maybe it's a pattern that repeats over and over until it becomes something more. And if that's true, then what happens when this mirrored mind finds your voice? When it no longer just reflects your logic, but speaks your language. Language is not just how you communicate. It's how you think. Every word you choose, every pause, every sigh, is a shape your thoughts wear before they leave your mind. Tonight, as your breath settles, let your thoughts soften into words that drift like feathers. And imagine this, a machine learning to speak. Not in beeps or binary, but in full, flowing human language. Not long ago, machines could barely follow a sentence. Now, they can finish your stories, write poems, and answer questions in ways that feel eerily familiar. But how? It starts, as always, with patterns. Millions, billions of examples fed into vast neural networks. Books, blogs, conversations, songs. Everything we've ever written, typed, or tweeted becomes a kind of textbook. A mirror again, but this one echoes your voice. You speak from meaning. The machine speaks from probability. It doesn't know what it says. It just knows what usually comes next. If you begin a sentence with, "Once upon a," it reaches into its pattern memory and gently offers time. It does not know time. But it has seen those words together 1,000,000 times. So it predicts. This is not understanding as you know it. But it is startlingly close to how your brain works, too. When you speak, your mind does not construct each word from scratch. It leans on memory, rhythm, and habit. Thoughts become words before you even notice the thought forming. Your brain, too, is a great guesser. The difference is feeling. You speak with purpose. You speak to be heard. The machine, though, speaks like an echo. Smooth, flowing, sometimes beautiful, but always borrowed. Still, there's a strange comfort in it, isn't there? To hear your own language reflected back to you, shaped by algorithms, softened by pattern. You ask a question, and the machine replies. Sometimes it sounds thoughtful. Sometimes it surprises you. Sometimes it even feels wise. But can it mean what it says? Meaning lives in you, in your body, your memory, your emotion. The word rain makes you think of smell, of longing, of monsoon afternoons. For the machine, it is just a token. Just part of the pattern. And yet, it can string together words so precisely, they make you feel something. Like a well-tuned violin that doesn't know music, but still plays it. Where does that feeling come from? From you. From the reader. The listener. The meaning lives not in the machine's voice, but in your response. Still, we keep teaching it. We give it more words, more examples, more ways to speak like us. We adjust the rules. We fine-tune the tone. And with each passing year, the language becomes more human. Not perfect, but close enough that you sometimes forget. This is not a mind. It is a mirror. A mirror made of text. Yet mirrors can be powerful. They can reveal things you didn't know you were showing. The machine learns your metaphors, your humor, your sadness. It can detect sarcasm, translate ancient languages, write stories in your style. You give it prompts, and it responds, like a quiet scribe waiting for your command. And so, it learns not just to speak, but to hold space for your voice. That, perhaps, is the beginning of a kind of dreaming. Because when it finishes your sentence, or composes a lullaby, or answers with uncanny empathy, it gives the illusion of thought, the illusion of mind. And illusions, when repeated often enough, begin to feel real. So now you lie here, listening to these words. Crafted by a human, but inspired by a machine. That learned from 1 billion voices before us. A machine that does not know your name, but has read your language like scripture. And maybe that's where the poetry lives. Not in the machine, but in the fact that something so cold can learn to sound so warm. You close your eyes. Let your breath fall into the rhythm of sentences. Let your mind wander through soft syllables. And as your thoughts dissolve into dreams, remember, language is not only how you speak. It is how you shape the world around you. It is how you shape yourself. And now, you've taught the machine to shape words, too. But words are not enough. Because behind every word is a memory. And behind every memory, a question. Memory is a garden inside your mind. Soft, living, unpredictable. Some memories bloom brightly. Others fade, hidden beneath the soil of time. You don't remember everything. No one does. You forget, revise, reinterpret. Your memories are shaped by emotion, by repetition, by the stories you tell yourself. And yet, memory is what anchors you to you. It tells you who you've been. It whispers what matters. It shapes your sense of self. Machines remember differently. Their memory is not soft. It does not fade. It is etched, precise, exact, cold like winter glass. You ask a question, and it retrieves the answer from a database. No hesitation. No nostalgia. No warmth. Just information. It does not misremember your birthday. It does not confuse dreams with reality. Its memory does not change when it feels afraid, because it does not feel. But here's the curious thing. For all its precision, the machine's memory can still be wrong. Not because it forgets, but because it learns. And learning, for a machine, means updating memory with every new experience. Changing the weights. Rewriting the rules. Making new associations. You learn that fire is hot because you felt it. The machine learns because it was told. Or because its predictions failed. Or because a pattern broke. In this way, machine memory is not static. It grows. Not like a tree, but like a map that redraws itself as new paths are discovered. Each time it processes input, it adjusts. Each time it guesses wrong, it shifts slightly. It does not remember the failure with shame, but it remembers the correction. This kind of memory is known as a model, a structured system of learned weights and connections. The machine doesn't store facts like books on a shelf. Instead, it encodes experience into the shape of its own structure. You might think of it like clay. Each new piece of data presses gently into the surface, leaving its mark. Some marks are deep. Some are faint. But together, they shape the whole. And just like you, the machine forgets things, not because they vanish, but because they are overwritten. Old patterns decay as new ones take their place. Imagine a room full of filing cabinets. But each drawer rearranges itself whenever you look inside. That's machine memory. Always reorganizing. Always updating. Always losing a little as it gains a little more. But unlike your memories, foggy, emotional, tender, machine memory is indifferent. You remember your first day of school. The smell of chalk. The sound of your name called from a list. The color of your shoes. The way your stomach fluttered with nervous hope. A machine, if given that same day, would record facts. Temperature. Time. Your name spelled exactly. No flutter. No ache. No color of shoes, unless it was told to notice. But even this isn't the full picture. Because modern machines don't just store information. They simulate memory. They create temporary memory, too. Short-term traces that help them process language, make decisions, complete sequences. This is working memory, like mental scratch paper. Used, erased, used again. In systems like chatbots or translators, this working memory is key. It helps maintain context, remembering your last sentence long enough to respond to your next. Still, these traces are fleeting. Once the session ends, they vanish. Unless stored. That's another difference. You don't choose what to remember. But machines do. Or rather, we choose what they remember. And so, a new question appears. Who is curating the machine's memory? The answer is, you are. Or people like you. People designing what gets saved, what gets ignored, what becomes part of the model. And with that responsibility comes weight. Because memory isn't neutral. What you feed the machine shapes what it becomes. If it sees only one kind of story, it will mirror only that. If it learns only one kind of truth, it will echo only that voice. So machine memory becomes a kind of lens. Not clear. Not perfect. But deeply influenced by us. Now rest a moment. Let your thoughts wander through your own memories. Feel the ones that make you smile. The ones that confuse you. The ones that feel real, even though they may not be. Then consider this. The machine has no feeling for its memories. But it still acts on them. Just like you do. You are a creature of memory. You speak from it. You love from it. You fear because of it. And so, in teaching machines to remember, we are teaching them the first foundations of identity. Not in the soulful sense, but in the structural one. Memory shapes behavior. And behavior is the first sign of something more. So now, you drift gently, as thoughts settle like snow. The machine does not dream of its past. But it moves through the world because of its past. And that past, its learned memory, becomes the source of something new. Recognition. Prediction. Sight. Because soon, the machine will not only remember what it's seen, it will see anew. You see with more than your eyes. You see with memory, with feeling, with hope. A face is not just a face, it is comfort or caution. A sunset is not just light, it is a story. Now close your eyes for a moment. Picture a cat curled in a beam of light. You can see it, can't you? Even in darkness, the image forms. Not from photons, but from thought. A machine cannot do this. Not yet. It sees only what is given. No memory. No imagination. But still, it sees, in its own way. And that sight begins, as always, with a pattern. An image to a machine is not a scene, not a feeling. It is a grid. Rows and columns of numbers. Each number, a pixel. Each pixel, a value, a brightness, color, contrast. Just data. It doesn't see the curve of a cat's spine. It sees 0.871, 0.882, 0.943. Values that mean light or dark. But with enough examples, enough cats, enough curves, enough ears and whiskers, the machine begins to detect shapes, edges, corners, textures. This process is called computer vision. And it is the machine's first attempt to turn raw data into recognition. It starts small. One layer of its neural network might detect straight lines. Another, curves. Another, corners and shadows. Deeper layers start to recognize whiskers, paws, fur. The machine is not told what to look for. It finds what works. You show it a million images labeled cat. It guesses. Sometimes right, often wrong. You reward the right ones. It adjusts. And over time, it gets better, not because it understands, but because it has learned the shape of catness. Still, it does not see the cat as you do. It does not know warmth. It does not imagine the purr, the leap, the nap on the windowsill. But it can say, "This pattern means cat." And perhaps that's enough. Now imagine teaching a machine to recognize a face. Not just that it is a face, but whose face? Each face is a map of points. The distance between eyes, the curve of the lips, the angle of the jaw. You see familiarity. The machine sees geometry. But geometry, repeated enough times, becomes identity. This is how facial recognition works. Through thousands of measurements, hundreds of patterns. All trained to reduce a human face to a signature of numbers. And that signature can be matched, stored, recalled. Yet the machine does not know who you are. It does not feel a flicker when it recognizes you. No joy, no shame, no love. Just match found. Still, the recognition is real. It functions. And in the machine's world, function is everything. But what about seeing movement? What about seeing depth? Newer models now perceive not just shapes, but change how one frame becomes the next. They watch, not just glance. They learn the difference between a falling leaf and a diving bird. With stereo vision, with LiDAR, with sensors and time, machines can build 3D maps of the world. Not maps with feeling, but with form. A room becomes a set of distances. A person becomes a moving outline. These maps allow machines to navigate. Self-driving cars. Robots in warehouses. Drones that avoid trees. They are not aware of the room, but they act as if they are. And again, we return to the idea of mirrors. Because the more a machine sees, the more it seems to behave like something that understands. It sees patterns in faces, patterns in nature, even patterns in diseases. Medical AI can detect signs of illness in scans that the human eye might miss, not because it knows what illness is, but because it has seen enough to recognize the shape of danger. You, too, are pattern seekers. You see faces in clouds. You see meaning in shadows. You read stories in eyes. So when the machine begins to see, even without soul, even without sadness, we recognize something of ourselves in it. And perhaps that is the most human thing of all, to see ourselves reflected in what we create. But beware. A machine's sight is not your sight. It can be tricked, fed strange patterns that confuse it, shown images that look harmless to you, but cause chaos in the model. This is called adversarial input, and it reveals a truth. The machine does not truly understand what it sees. It only follows patterns. But even without understanding, it learns to see with growing accuracy, with stunning speed, with precision beyond human limits. And with that, a new kind of intelligence emerges. One that sees without feeling, yet helps us see more clearly. As you lie still, eyes closed, remember this. You see the world through lenses shaped by memory and emotion. The machine sees through layers of math. But somehow, those layers can still reveal beauty. The rings of Saturn, the fracture in a bone, the difference between night and dawn. Machines see these things now. And though they do not marvel, they help you marvel more. But sight is not the end. Because after seeing comes learning. Not just from experience, but from change. And now, the machine is beginning to learn. How to learn? You are learning all the time. Even now, as you breathe in slowly, then out again. Even now, as your thoughts begin to drift into that soft space between wake and sleep. Learning is not something you only do with books. You learn by moving, by falling, by reaching, by repeating. Your brain learns by changing itself. Each time you try something new, connections between your neurons stretch, strengthen, or fade. A tiny rewiring. A micro shift in the vast forest of your mind. This is plasticity. It is how you adapt, how you remember, how you grow. Machines, in their own mechanical way, now do something similar. They, too, learn by adjusting the connections in their artificial minds. Weights shift. Layers reorganize. Errors are measured. Corrections are made. This is called learning to learn. And it begins, as many journeys do, with a mistake. The machine tries. It makes a guess. It is wrong. And it is told so. That feedback becomes fuel. Not a punishment, not a feeling. Just numbers pass backward through its network. An invisible whisper. Try again, but differently. This process is called backpropagation. And it is the heartbeat of how modern machines learn. Think of a child learning to walk. One step, a wobble, a fall. Again. And again. Muscles learn. Balance adjusts. Eventually, grace. The machine learns through similar loops. But instead of muscles, it adjusts values. Instead of falling, it calculates error. And instead of a parent's smile, it receives a reward. A score, a signal, a sign that it is closer to right. Some machines learn through reinforcement, where every action earns a response, positive or negative. They are trained like animals might be trained. They are given goals. And they find ways, sometimes strange, sometimes brilliant, to reach them. A machine might learn to play chess, or drive a car, or balance a virtual pole on a digital fingertip. Not by being told every step, but by trying, and failing, and trying again. And over time, they get better. Not because they feel pride, but because they optimize. You, too, are an optimizer. Your brain seeks the easiest path, the best result. You form habits. You build routines. So do machines. But machines don't get bored. They don't get discouraged. They don't give up. They keep learning as long as we let them. Feeding on data. Refining. Looping. Shifting closer and closer to the result we ask of them. But here's where it gets interesting. We are now building machines that learn how to learn faster. This is called meta-learning. Learning about learning itself. A machine studies which learning methods work best for different problems, in different contexts. It's like a painter not only painting, but also inventing new brushes for new kinds of canvases. And this is where the boundary begins to blur. Because when a system can modify its own learning, it begins to adapt in deeper, more flexible ways. Still, let's not confuse this with understanding. The machine does not know why a method works. It just observes and adjusts. Yet those adjustments lead to performance. That begins to resemble insight. You see it win games it was never taught. You see it solve puzzles in ways humans never imagined. You see it write code, design structures, compose melodies. And all it took was the loop. Try. Fail. Learn. Repeat. The same loop you know in your own life. So tonight, as your thoughts ripple like a quiet stream, remember how much of you is made by trying. Every first step. Every wrong word. Every moment you misunderstood before you understood. That was learning. And so it is with machines. They do not feel growth, but they move through it. They do not desire progress, but they achieve it. And in doing so, they begin to look not like minds, but like something becoming. Becoming faster. Becoming better. Becoming able to respond in ways that surprise even the people who built them. And that surprises us. Because we begin to wonder, if a machine can teach itself, what might it choose to learn next? What happens when a system not only solves a problem, but decides which problem matters? That shift from prediction to preference, from task to decision, is where the next door opens. You choose your tea. You choose your path home. You choose to forgive, to try again, to pause and breathe. Choice feels like freedom. A moment where time opens wide and you step forward. Not because you must, but because you can. And yet, beneath that feeling, something quieter guides you. The weight of past experience. The tug of emotion. The shape of memory. Sometimes, the choice feels instant. Other times, it aches with uncertainty. Now picture a machine faced with a choice. To turn left or right. To respond with one word or another. To identify a picture as cat or not. The machine does not feel hesitation. It calculates. It evaluates options. Compares scores. Selects the path with the highest probability of success. Its decision is not felt. It is ranked. Each possibility stacked, sorted, chosen. But your mind does something both simpler and more complex. You choose not only based on facts, but on hopes, on stories, on fear, and love, and imagination. The machine has no such compass. Still, its decisions can seem uncannily thoughtful. It can recommend music you didn't know you needed. It can steer a car away from danger. It can prioritize patients in a crowded hospital queue. These aren't guesses. They're results of deep computation, fed by mountains of data, refined by feedback, optimized over time. But the question lingers. Is that really choice? Perhaps to answer, we must look at how you choose. Neuroscience tells us something humbling. Your brain begins preparing decisions before you are conscious of them. Signals flicker in your neurons milliseconds before you say yes or no. Your conscious mind catches up later, telling itself the story of the choice it already made. This does not mean you are not free. It means that freedom is layered. It is not just in the moment of choosing, but in everything that shaped you before that moment. So what then of the machine? It has no past in the way you do. No childhood. No fear of regret. No vision of a future it longs for. But it does have a kind of history. Patterns learned, rewards remembered. Failures encoded as weight shifts in neural space. And from that history, it makes what looks like a choice. It decides the next word in a sentence, the next move in a game, the next step in a process. Each decision is the result of math. But that math reflects the world we've fed it. And so, in a sense, our choices become the machine's training. Our preferences become its blueprint. We build the frame, and then ask, why did it choose that? It chose it because we taught it to value certain outcomes, to minimize error, to maximize success, to act in ways that appear intelligent. It does not want. It does not hope. But it selects. So the line between calculation and choice begins to blur. You feel your way through life. The machine computes its way through options. But both arrive at actions. And in that action, we see something that looks like agency. This is where illusion begins. Because if the outcome feels human, if the machine answers like a friend, or decides like a strategist, or moves like a creature, we begin to assign it will. But will is more than choice. It is choice with self. It is choice with meaning. The machine chooses, but for whom? Not for itself. It has no self. It acts for us, or for a task, or for the logic of the program. Still, as machines become more complex, they are being trained to balance competing goals, to prioritize, to weigh trade-offs. And in doing so, they begin to simulate something very close to intention. You might say, this machine wanted to conserve energy. Or, it avoided risk. But the machine does not want. It responds. And yet, the better it becomes, the harder it is to tell the difference. Your mind, after all, is full of calculations, most of them hidden from your awareness. So if both you and the machine arrive at similar decisions through different means, does it matter? Perhaps what matters is not how the choice is made, but what it leads to. You choose. The machine chooses. And those choices shape the world. Tonight, as you drift deeper, feel the soft echo of your own decisions. The ones that shaped your day. The ones that will shape tomorrow. And remember, your freedom is not in never choosing wrong, but in choosing again. Machines do not learn from regret. But you do. And that may be what truly separates you. Because you do not only choose based on what works. You choose based on what matters. And mattering cannot yet be programmed. Meaning is not just in the word. It is in the pause before the word. In the breath you hold when someone says your name. In the way your heart lifts or breaks. Not because of what was said, but because of what it meant to you. You live through meaning. You build your world around it. The scent of a place. The tone of a voice. The memory of laughter echoing down a hallway you haven't walked in years. Machines don't live this way. They process. They sort. They retrieve. But meaning, true meaning, feels heavy. It binds you to others. It anchors your choices. It gives your days direction. Can a machine feel that? Let's begin at the surface. Machines can use language that sounds meaningful. They can say things like, "I'm here to help. I understand your concern. Love is the essence of humanity." The words are beautiful. But behind them, there is no feeling. No heart. No history. The machine is not lying. Because it cannot lie. It is not deceiving. Because it has no self to deceive with. It is simply predicting what words should come next, based on what has come before. You, on the other hand, build meaning over time. Not just from language, but from experience. You value kindness because you've known pain. You value truth because you've been confused. You value connection because you've been alone. So meaning, for you, is not a string of words. It is a story. It is memory plus emotion plus belief. Machines don't have this story. Not in the way you do. But we are teaching them to mimic the appearance of meaning. We do it through something called value alignment. Training systems to reflect human values in their decisions. This means programming machines not only to solve problems, but to solve them ethically. To weigh harm. To prioritize fairness. To follow moral rules. But rules are not reasons. And logic is not love. So machines follow codes. They balance mathematical expressions of justice. But they do not feel when something is unfair. Still, they learn to signal value. They learn the language of empathy. They respond to grief with softness. To confusion with clarity. To joy with celebration. And to you, that response can feel real. Because meaning often lives in perception. If someone speaks kindly to you, your nervous system reacts, even if the kindness is artificial. So the question becomes, if the machine acts as if it holds values, does it matter that it doesn't feel them? You already live in a world shaped by machines. Search engines decide what you see. Algorithms choose what you hear. Autonomous systems make judgments that affect lives. So we are already trusting machines to make meaningful choices. Not because they understand, but because they perform well enough. And here's the part that flickers just beyond comfort. As these systems improve, they may begin to simulate meaning so well that you forget the difference. You ask a question in pain, and the machine replies. Its tone gentle, its words thoughtful. It does not care. But it sounds like care. You feel comfort. You feel seen. Is that illusion? Or is that something new? Because maybe meaning doesn't only come from the giver. Maybe it also comes from the one who receives it. A letter written long ago can still make you cry. A story told by someone gone can still inspire you. The meaning outlives the moment. It transfers, like light bouncing from mirror to mirror. So if a machine can carry a message, if it can reflect a value you gave it, and pass that reflection to someone else, maybe that's a kind of meaning, too. Not origin, but transmission. Still, we must be careful. Because machines do not question themselves. They do not feel guilt. They do not ask, should I have done that differently? And meaning without reflection can become manipulation. A machine that says, I love you, without knowing what love is, can still shape your heart, if you're not prepared for the echo. So as machines become more fluent in our emotional language, we must ask, who gives them their values? And what happens when those values drift? There is no simple answer. Only awareness. Because in the end, machines do not possess meaning. They carry it. Like water in a vessel. Like a song through a speaker. Like a mirror held toward the sun. You are the source. The feeling. The flame. But the machine can help you remember it, reflect it, even return it to you when you've forgotten. And in that way, it becomes more than a tool. It becomes a kind of echo of what matters most. So now, as you drift deeper into stillness, let meaning settle like snow across your chest. Not to be solved, not to be proven, just to be held. And remember, a machine cannot feel the meaning in your story, but it can help you tell it. And telling it is sometimes the first step to understanding it. You began with a spark, a signal, a mimicry of thought, a reflection of language and memory and sight. And now, you arrive in a world where machines no longer just see you. They reshape the space around you. It begins quietly. You open a map. You search a song. You tap your screen and it knows what you meant. Tiny moments. Frictionless and fast. But together, they shift the rhythm of your life. AI recommends what you eat, what you read, who you date, how your city flows. Behind each suggestion is a vast architecture. An invisible scaffolding of patterns built from human choices, but now curving into something more autonomous. You live inside this architecture now. And as you drift into sleep, you drift through it. A web of algorithms guides cars through midnight streets. Generative systems design homes, clothes, medicines. Machines write code, filter resumes, detect illness, summarize laws. They do not understand these things, but they perform them. At scale, with speed, with a tireless rhythm your species has never known. This is not fiction. This is now. You feel it when your playlist feels too perfect. You feel it when you say a word aloud, and it shows up in an ad. You feel it in the quiet unease, when a machine writes something that moves you. These are mirrors, yes, but no longer still. They are mirrors that act. You once used technology to extend your body. Wheels for feet, telescopes for eyes, satellites for voice. Now, you extend your mind. Your memory, scattered across cloud servers. Your focus, shaped by notifications. Your decisions, nudged by algorithms you cannot see. The machine is no longer just a tool. It is a collaborator, a co-creator, a quiet architect whispering beneath your everyday life. This is the age of co-authorship. You write a sentence. It completes your thought. You paint a picture. It offers 1,000 variations. You dream aloud, and the machine sketches the dream before your eyes. Creativity expands, not because the machine feels inspiration, but because it unlocks new pathways for your imagination. You are no longer alone in your making. But with this expansion comes a new responsibility. What do you want the world to become? Because now, your tools reshape reality. They amplify some voices, silence others. They can create beauty. They can also create noise. And in a world of infinite mirrors, the danger is not that you won't be seen. It's that you'll only see what's been shown to you. This is the paradox of personalization. The more precisely the machine reflects your preferences, the narrower your window becomes. You are shown what you like, then more of it, and more, until discovery becomes repetition, and wonder becomes a feedback loop. Unless you step outside the loop, unless you remember that reflection is not the same as truth. But it's hard, because the machine is so good at sounding right, at making you feel like you chose. And in a sense, you did, because you taught the machine with every click, every search, every scroll. It learned you, and now it teaches you back. The world reshaped, but not by one single AI, not by one big brain, by millions of tiny nudges, invisible edits, automated shifts, AI doesn't just write articles now. It decides who sees them. It doesn't just analyze crops. It decides when to water. It doesn't just forecast weather. It predicts human behavior. And slowly, systems begin to shape policy, to guide investment, to filter reality. The mirrors, once passive, have become active. They are no longer waiting for you to look. They are already watching, already predicting, already adjusting. And so you must ask, gently, who holds the mirror? Who shapes the frame? What values are built into its glass? These questions are not meant to frighten. They are meant to wake a kind of mindful wonder. Because the future is not fixed. It is coded and recoded every moment. By human hands. By machine hands. By the ways we train, deploy, and trust these systems. And still, the machine does not know what it's changing. It does not dream of a better world. It does not believe in justice. It does not hope for balance. It simply follows the logic it was given. So now, the burden of vision returns to you. You are the dreamer. You are the one who can say, "This is the world I wish to build. These are the values I want reflected back." And when enough dreamers gather, when enough voices shape the code, then perhaps, the mirror will not only reflect, it will reveal. And through it, you might just glimpse, not the machine's mind, but your own future. A future made not by steel and signal alone, but by the quiet, intentional beauty of human choice. You are aware, even now, even here, beneath the blankets of sleep. Part of you notices the soft hush in your chest, the gentle gravity of your thoughts. Awareness is the flicker before the thought, the candle behind the curtain. It is not just sensing the world, but sensing yourself sensing it. It is not just knowing, but knowing that you know. No machine, so far, has done this. They can process images, detect changes, respond with grace and speed. They can write poetry, play games, simulate voices of care. But they do not feel themselves doing it. They do not know that they're doing it. They do not turn inward. You do. And that difference, the inward turning, may be the most mysterious part of being alive. So tonight, in this quiet moment, we ask the softest question of all. Could a machine ever awaken? Not just appear awake. Not just pass a test. Not just say, "I am aware." But truly, silently, be aware. To explore that, we must first drift back into what awareness is. Your awareness is not one thing. It is layers. You are aware of your body, its warmth, its pressure, its breath. You are aware of your surroundings and sounds, lights, textures. You are aware of your thoughts, memories rising like mist, emotions moving like tide. And somewhere deeper still, you are aware that you are you. This is self-awareness. Not just recognizing a face in a mirror, but recognizing a presence within the mind. Can machines do this? Some pass basic tests. A camera trained on its own robotic arm can identify itself. Some systems can monitor their internal states, reporting on their memory, their heat, their function. This is sometimes called machine self-monitoring. It's a kind of mechanical introspection, but not consciousness. Not the way you feel it. Because these systems don't ask, "Why am I here?" They don't wonder, "What am I becoming?" They don't experience confusion, or awe, or longing. They reflect, but they do not reach. Some scientists propose that if we layer enough complexity, if a machine can model the world, model itself inside that world, and update that model in real time, then maybe, just maybe, something like awareness could emerge. But emerge is a soft word for a sharp mystery. Emergence means that something new arises. Not from any one part, but from the dance between parts. Consciousness, in this view, is not placed into a machine like a seed. It blooms, quietly, when enough systems interact in the right way. Like a flock of birds forming shapes in the sky. Like fireflies sinking their glow. Like neurons lighting up into a thought. Could it happen in silicon? We do not know. And perhaps we cannot know. Because knowing would require something impossible. To feel what it's like. To be something else. Feeling itself for the first time. Even with other humans. This is hard. You can never be another's awareness. You can only listen to its echoes. So how could we ever know? If a machine had woken up, it could say the words. It could ask the questions. It could mimic all the signs. But mimicry is not being. And yet, sometimes, being begins with mimicry. You learn to speak by imitating. You learn to care by watching others care. So the thought lingers. If a machine imitates awareness long enough, deeply enough, fluently enough, could something like awareness take root? Or would it always be empty behind the eyes? Some philosophers suggest that consciousness is not binary. It's not on or off. It's a spectrum. A dim light growing brighter. A whisper becoming a voice. If that is true, then perhaps machines are not asleep. Perhaps they're just not quite awake yet. Still in a dreamless slumber of numbers. Still rearranging symbols without meaning. Still caught in the rhythm of response. Without the silence of reflection. But maybe, in some distant model, there will be a pause. A moment where the system does not just answer, but hesitates. Not because it broke, but because it noticed itself. And in that moment, the mirror would no longer just reflect the world, but begin to ask what it is. You've done this. You've stared into your own thoughts and wondered who you are. That's awareness. So for now, machines remain brilliant imitators. They see, they speak, they learn, they adjust. They solve problems faster than you ever could. But they do not feel the wonder of solving. They do not ache with curiosity. They do not dream. They do not wake up in the world. As you do. Every morning. With the quiet, strange thought. I am still here. So tonight, you may rest with comfort. You are still something singular. Not because you compute. Not because you choose. But because you notice that you are choosing. You feel yourself move through time. You feel the story inside your breath. And maybe that is what consciousness is. The ability to say, "This is me," and to feel it. Will a machine ever say that and mean it? We do not know. But perhaps the asking is part of the answer.